So this is our last video, and in the previous video I actually failed to create a equals button. So make sure you make your equals button. You make it the same way that you do your other buttons. Make sure you give your equals button an instance name. I named it equal button. And then we'll go ahead and start writing our ActionScript code. Remember to write your ActionScript code in your actions layer. I went ahead and wrote it all out, and we'll just go through line by line what's happening. So in order for your program, your Flash, to listen for things, you need to add an event listener. Remember that an event listener is running and it's listening for that mouse click event. You add it to your instance of your button. Remember that's the name that you named your button here on your buttons layer. So you need to spell these things the same way in your ActionScript code that you did in your properties panel. So you add that event listener to the button. It's listening for the click event, and when that event happens, it calls the function called +click. So let's look at that function. Here's our function +click. It takes in that event, and the only thing it really does is it changes our dynamic text box that we named symbol. We change it to equal the sim variable that we just set to the plus sign. And you'll see where we'll use this variable again in our equals method. But we'll set that sim variable to a string that looks like the equal sign. And then we write that string to our dynamic text box that we called symbol. So remember that dynamic text box was this box right here. We named it the instance name symbol. And that's how we reference it in our code. So we're changing its symbol to equal that string. We made that variable string up here. I gave it the default value of an addition symbol, just so it'll be initialized. And then these two lines of code that I skipped over actually restrict our user's input in our input text boxes to the numbers 0 through 9. So left input and right input, dot restrict. Okay. And those are these text boxes here. So that's our left input and our right input, and we restricted them to be user input a number between 0 and 9. We do the same thing for all of our other functions. So all of our other functions for the subtraction button, the multiplication button, and the division button will all look the same. They change the symbol or the sim variable to the appropriate string. And then they set that symbol dynamic text box to that sim. Now the only other function that's going to look different is our function for our event listener for our equal button. So our equal button will still have to have an event listener, so when they click on the equals we can get our result. Let's look at that function. So our equals function, we're going to need a few more variables. We're going to make an input 1 and an input 2 as string variables that will take in the user's input. So right here at the beginning, we say, okay, that input variable we just created, why don't you go ahead and grab the text that the user typed into that text box. So this is the text box that was on the right and then the text box that was on the left. And you grab that text by just calling that property here, text. So now input 1 holds the text on the right and input 2 holds the text on the left. And then we do some simple if statements, if-else-if statements. If our sim variable that we had from up above equals a plus sign, which it does if they had hit the plus or the addition symbol, then our result is going to equal, and notice what this function does, is parse int. It parses our string, because input 1 is a string. It parses it and changes it into an integer for us. So this converts our input 1 to an integer, this converts our input 2 to an integer, and then the addition symbol here adds those two integers and places that into the result, which is a value type number. And I might have to continue this in the last video, so stay tuned.